My topic is on xenophobia, the impacts of xenophobia on bilateral relations, a study of Nigeria and South Africa. So basically, the cause of this study is the observation that over the years, there's been a huge rate of urbanization in African countries, meaning that there is more population in the cities and urban areas compared to the local rural areas. And as a result of this, there's been a lot of pressure on limited social resources that we have in African countries. And despite the population being over 18 years of age, most of the populations, half of the population actually are youths in these countries, but their economical capabilities and development does not match this future potential in the cities. So as a result of this, there's a huge rate of violence and instability in the states, especially, like I said, in the urban cities. And in the last 15 years, more than usual, the governmental support for housing and other urban social services, including hospitals and socio-economic educations, have diminished significantly, leading to violence in these African states. And because of this fight for limited social resources, the locals in these countries where the immigrants are moving into tend to see the immigrants as threats to their limited resources. So there's this hostility and a sense of violence towards immigration, especially countries like South Africa. And in recent years, they've been in huge back on the attacks on Nigerians in South Africa, especially. So which is why I picked this research, because I'm Nigerian, obviously, and this attacks on Nigerians keeps to be persistent. We've had one in 2008, we had in 2015, we had in 2017, we had in 2019, and also in 2020. So that is what led to this research. So due to these limited resources, like I said earlier, there's this fear of foreigners or anything that is not from the locals in South Africa, leading to what we know as xenophobia in South Africa today. So according to Stembois, xenophobia is seen as the fear for whatever is foreign or alien to the immediate culture of whoever or whatever state is involved. And South Africa is in the southmost region of the continent, and it lies between the major cities of Lagos, Nigeria, and Cairo, Egypt. And there are three capitals in South Africa. The executive capital is the Pretoria city, and Cape Town is the legislative capital. And then we have Johannesburg, which is the commercial city of South Africa. And in 2004, the South African Migration Project launched a strong nation building project. And one of the advantages of this project was a kind of unexpected consequence of a rise in the maltreatment of foreigners, because this project was meant to draw and encourage nationals in South Africa to be more patriotic and actually take up more entrepreneurship courses. But in the due of this nation building project, they became more defensive against foreigners. So there was this sense of maltreatment against anyone that wasn't necessarily South African. And this was in 2004, which makes sense because 4 years later, there was a very intensive xenophobic violence in the country. Bilateral relations, as we all know, is a form of diplomacy between two countries in the form of established forms of relations between two countries to cover a particular interest of the two entities. Nigeria's relation with South Africa does not actually limit itself to xenophobia. The funny part of this entire thing is that it was actually Nigeria in 1991 that helped in the struggle of South Africa freedom against the apartheid rule. And in 1991, South Africa was free from the apartheid government due to Nigeria's pressure and influence in the global politics. And this eventually led to a sort of landmark in the relationship between Nigeria and South Africa. So consequently, after their independence from apartheid and Nelson Mandela became their president, it became like this sort of tight-knit relationship between Nigeria and South Africa following up. And in the frame of this work, I would like to apply the two theories of utilitarianism theory, and the second theory that I'll be coming later on is the frustration aggression theory. So I'm kind of using this theory to explain or trying to find a reason between the actions of South African locals. So I use this utilitarianism theory as a theory that explains the morality of what xenophobia is and seeing it through the moral lens of what it's supposed to be and how it's against humanity and causing certain form of pain and disarray to a certain group of people. And the second theory is the frustration aggression theory, which I'll be showing later on. That is used to actually kind of a sense of understanding of why South Africans are acting the way they are in their society, because that's not the only country where we have a lot of immigrants, but that seems to be one of the countries with the highest rate of xenophobia, especially against Nigerians, which are one of the most how do I put it? They have the most businesses and they help the most in the economical advancement in Cape Town. So it's kind of ironical that these people that come into your country to actually boost your economy are the ones that you're mostly fighting against. So going back to the theory, as I said earlier, I'm using the utilitarianism theory. And the scholar of this theory is Jeremy Bentham, which he founded in 1861, along with other scholars, including John Stuart Mill, Adam Smith, Davis Home, and Francis Hodgson. So basically, the theory is just saying that whatever is good for one person should be good for everybody. Your own satisfaction should not be at the detriment of the pain or the suffering of other persons or other group of people. There are two basic principles of this theory, which are the consequentialist principle and the utility principles. But for the sake of this paper, I basically highlighted the consequentialist principle, which is basically focusing on the rightness and wrongness of an action being based on the final result. So in this situation, the means does not justify the end justifies the means in this paper. So it's saying that whatever you're doing, irrespective of the legality or the rightness of the process going into that action, what determines whether the action or whatever law you're putting in place is good or bad is based on the final result that it has on the people which this law or whatever this thing has been put in place for. It has to be to the advantage of the people. So obviously, if the law is against the people, then it is not supposed to be that way. And if it's a right law at the end of the day, then it's doing what it's supposed to do. Then the principle basically says that pleasure is encouraged, satisfaction is encouraged, but it shouldn't be, like I said, at the detriment of other group of people. And the other principles in this theory are the impartiality and the agent of neutrality principle, meaning that you shouldn't belong to a particular side, you should be neutral and shouldn't be biased towards one another. So when applying this to xenophobia, it's easy to actually say because these attacks have occurred like more than 5 times in the South African society, leading that the South African locals are actually okay with this. They see it as a way to pour out their aggression against immigrants. So it's saying that to an extent, this xenophobic occurrences is benefiting a certain group of people, but at the expense of displacing another group of people, because we have Nigerians there, their families, their businesses, their schools, but then they are being displaced because of these actions, including jungle violences such as burning people alive just as a result of your own anger against the country that they are from, which is quite sad. So moving on, the next theory I use is the frustration aggression theory, and this was coined by a group of psychologists in Yale University, including John Dollard, Leonard Dube, Neil Miller, Maurer, and Robert Sayers. So in 1939, so this theory is basically saying that aggression doesn't just come out of nowhere. There's been a sense of pent-up frustration over a period of time, leading to the burst of aggression and violence. So this is what this theory is trying to explain. So it's explaining a source of pattern in the behavior or a way of life of a particular group of people. So the thing about the frustration aggression theory is that the locals see that these are the basic amenities that we have, but we don't necessarily have access to them, like I said earlier, such as schooling, healthcare, clean water, good roads, good businesses that are flourishing. And then this certain group of people come into our country and they seem to have access to these things more than we are actually like citizens. So they see it as, what do they have that we don't have, and why are they leaving their own countries that they don't have enough to come here to take from us that we're still managing, but then you're managing to still take from us. So that's the kind of frustration the South Africans have against Nigerians in this setting. So as a result of this kind of frustration, obviously this has led to the xenophobic attacks, like I said earlier, in 2008, that left over 100,000 Nigerians displaced in South Africa. And this attack not only led to the loss of businesses, people actually lost their lives. Students had to be sent back to Nigeria, amongst other forms of consequences. And like I said earlier, we had other attacks in 2015 as well, in 2017, 2019, and also in 2020. And in reaction to this, the Nigerian government have been more of declarative rather than reactory to the actions of this violence against its citizens. They seem to put out statements on things that will be done, but things have not actually been done. And in 2017 and 2020, we saw the Nigerians take matters into their hands. In 2017, there was the Nigerian Association of Students that actually came into the legislative office in Abuja to declare that something should be kept in place. There should be a legislation that should be kept in place for these actions, but no one really necessarily did anything. That was in 2017. Moving on, in 2020, after the NSAS movement in Nigeria, there was also a form of display against South African businesses in Nigeria, such as the MTN office, the DSTV multi-choice, the ShopRite complex, which is a shopping complex in Nigeria. These are major South African businesses that actually become a big deal in Nigeria. So Nigeria started boycotting these businesses. They also attacked, also looting property, just to express their dismay to the attacks of the Nigerians in South Africa, which Nigerian government have barely done anything about. And eventually, I would like to conclude that I'm not getting my next page. Okay, yes. Yes, okay. So these are the examples I stated earlier on xenophobic violence, on how Nigerians have shown their dismay, but not necessarily the Nigerian government. So as a result of this, I would like to conclude with the fact that it's quite ironical that the Nigerian government that upped the South Africans from the control of the apartheid government, and now the same one that the South African government seems to be attacking against their own economic development. And the theories I used here reject the logic and practice of xenophobia, speculating that a mutually beneficial bilateral relations should be carried out between the two countries. One party should not benefit at the dismay or at the pain of the nationals of the other members of the country. And the political and economic impacts of Nigeria and its nationals in South Africa cannot be overemphasized, because, like I said earlier, the economic in South Africa today, especially in major cities like Cape Town and Johannesburg, the warehouses and the entrepreneurship businesses in South Africa is mainly fostered by Nigerians. So I feel like a major immigration rights law should be put in place, not just for Nigerians, but for immigrants in general that are residing in South Africa, and as a sense of protection against xenophobic violence. And also, the non-retaliating nature of the Nigerian government should actually be stopped. The Nigerian government needs to actually do something, maybe put in a legislative protocol, and also enhance a form of rule or law in their bilateral relationship in South Africa, because the xenophobic attacks have actually affected the relationship between the two countries in the long run. It has not stopped the relationship, but they've been a form of strained and awkward relationship between the two countries, because one of the nationals of one of them is suffering in the country of the host country, and nothing is being done about it. And as a sign of goodwill, the theory should be promoted in South Africa in order to ensure that even though they are trying to please their own nationals, it should not affect, or it should not put the immigrants in an unsafe place in the country. And systematic corruption in Nigeria should be addressed, because if this corruption is addressed in the nation, there will be more attention and there will be more action put into place in order to protect the Nigerians residing in South Africa. I hope this is it all. Thank you.